Our fifth speaker, Matt Hooper from IMI Mobile, is an experienced senior enterprise software marketer and general manager with over 20 years in international marketing, customer experience, product management, and business development. He will now talk about AI and improving the customer experience.
Okay, good morning, everybody. I want to sort of share some of the things that we're seeing in the market as a cloud software provider. We're working with a lot of enterprises across sectors, helping them bring in things like conversational messaging channels into their customer service, into their marketing, and inevitably through that the use of automation and AI in particular aspects. So I think it's well documented the history of AI, where we've got to, and even last week Google got a bunch of tech journalists together down in Silicon Valley and were demonstrating Google Duplex, the ability to use a messaging interface that would actually then use a machine to phone a restaurant and make a booking, which apparently blew everybody away. So, but one of the key questions is, why now and why the explosion with something as a concept that's been around for quite a long time? Well, there are three core reasons, and the first one is big data. The sheer amounts of unstructured data is absolutely perfect for a machine to actually learn from. So that's one of the reasons. Also, the development of hardware and software models as well. If you think of Amazon with AWS, Microsoft with Azure, the sheer amount of processing power and the accessibility to it, again, lends itself very neatly in terms of the development of AI-based technology. And the third one really is the whole cloud computing economy. So from that perspective, the accessibility, the use of APIs, the use of technology is getting cheaper and cheaper, and also the accessibility of things actually now existing in the cloud is not kind of on-premise or locked off. So those three elements are kind of creating a perfect storm in the marketplace, which helps to explain, I guess, the kind of the explosion both in the interest and also in the actual applications that we're seeing in the marketplace. So in terms of the forecast, the numbers are quite staggering, and when you consider by 2021, in terms of business value, the market's going to be delivering value of about $3 trillion globally. That will represent about 6 billion hours of worker production time, which is actually being recovered from that perspective. And one of the key drivers here is the efficiencies that you can get around improving the customer experience, which I think is already been mentioned today, and also how you engage with customers. Now, most enterprise boards have objectives around improving customer experience, but the reality is that this year, customer experience in a lot of enterprises will actually go down by about 30% due to the competitive nature and the changing nature of markets. So there's a key challenge there from an operational perspective, and this is an area that we work with enterprises heavily on. So one of the key sort of applications in the market are clearly around conversational-based solutions. What can you actually automate from a front-end perspective if you're an enterprise? One of those is kind of brought into the context with chatbots and virtual assistants. There's a ton of projects and pilots in the marketplace, and many are successful. The reality is that for around about 80% of chatbot projects that are currently ongoing in enterprises, about 80% of those won't actually make it into the wider commercial domain. So the market is still at an early adopter stage, even for these types of one-step types of engagement. But nevertheless, virtual assistants, conversational messaging and interaction, and those things coming together are a key driver and will be a significant driver for customer service and customer engagement moving forward over the next few years. So chatbots today, in the marketplace, is one application of AI can be fairly sort of simple. But we're seeing things come into place where, for example, retailers frequently ask questions for looking at where is my order, even going in and looking up sort of account balances. This is where the market is today for these types of elements. Multi-step and complex transactions or inquiries, which involve many data sources or many layers of data. That's still very much to come from a commercial application perspective. So in terms of the actual chatbot line, if you like, today, what we're seeing is kind of fairly basic, fairly sort of baby steps. And I'll come on to this, the actual impact, especially on customer service operations, is already starting to become significant, and we believe will become increasingly so. When we kind of talk about these things, it's kind of important to step back and recognise what the consumers actually want from this. Do they actually want this kind of stuff in the first place? And one of the things that we did last year was go out and talk to consumers and find out what they really wanted. And the immediacy of what's been created with the smartphone economy is that folks want speed, speed, speed. They want to be dealt with in the immediacy, between 30 seconds, no more than sort of 5 minutes to get a resolution to a query. 50% of the consumers that we spoke to in the UK did say that, look, if you can improve and speed up the customer resolution, then automation was not a problem for them. And I think, a good example last week, I think it was reported, I think it was one of the utilities had a slight issue with their customer service where somebody had phoned up their contact centre and they got a message saying, your call is important to us. And with the next message, it said your number 150 in the queue. So, and you kind of wonder why customer experience is kind of going down and not up, right? So, but putting automation onto the front end with that kind of issue is something that can have a profound impact for enterprises. The other piece here is really what we're seeing happening with messaging. So, messaging is nothing new. SMS is still the best inbox in the world. 5 billion people use it. 98% of messages get read. 90% get read within, I think, about 3 to 5 minutes. So that's perfect. And you can even apply the conversational aspect and actually use AI from an interaction perspective with something like SMS, as well as other types of messaging channels as well. Facebook Messenger we're doing a lot of work with, seeing aspects like WhatsApp as well. And if you look at conversational messaging channels, they've actually outstripped the use of social media. I know a lot of the trade analysts that I speak to really didn't expect that to happen. So from that perspective, we've kind of got a perfect storm in the marketplace to start to automate more of these interactions. And you've also got to bear in mind as well that the majority of companies, although they might use a little bit of SMS for notifications, alerts, we all receive those, very few of those interactions are actually conversational. So there's only about 10% of enterprises have a conversational interface driven via messaging, but the kind of clues in the term conversational. So when you get a text message from a delivery courier that says do not reply to this message, well, why should that be? This kind of stuff was built for for conversation. So in terms of discoverability, persistence, even sort of checkpointing and through sort of SLAs, messaging and the different types of sort of messaging application that are now available are perfect to kind of marry up with AI-based and automated interactions. We can see the kind of the evolution and where things have come from, and inevitably with mobile apps, in terms of messaging, I think we're all now on average each day spending about 21 minutes of our time messaging. That's what we all do on average. I'm sure some do less and some do more. And then the nature of actually sort of, obviously with the augmentation of different devices and things like Alexa and those kind of things that have come onto the marketplace over the last couple of years. So, I've been working in the enterprise and the software and the mobile industry for about 22 years, and I've never seen anything like what we're seeing at the moment in terms of the development of technology and also the opportunities and what we're seeing and the impact on enterprises as well, and how that's going to sort of really shape how successful they are in a bunch of different industries over the next few years. It's also important to recognise new channels that are coming into the marketplace. So RCS, Rich Communication Service, which you'll hear a lot more about in the next 2 to 3 years. Everybody's talked about, in terms of commentary in the marketplace for a long time. Well, what will supersede SMS? Will anything be able to actually replace the ubiquity of it? And RCS is the first thing I've seen which has the opportunities to do that. And we're working with the likes of Google and also with Vodafone, and some of our customers, like British Gas, Pizza Hut deliveries, to trial some of this new technology. And what RCS gives you, over and above something like SMS today, is a richness in terms of graphics, the ability to bring in video, carousel, sort of hot links, again, more kind of sort of hot buttons, and provide more of a web-like experience that you get on your PC today from a commerce perspective. So the question is with RCS, it's not a kind of an if, it's going to be a when. And we will see commercial RCS services coming onto the marketplace over the next 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. The operators are talking to get the important aspect of interconnected together. It's being very much championed by Google from an Android perspective, and Apple are expected to get involved in this sort of later next year in terms of the interface with Apple Business Messaging. So again, a very sort of exciting development in the marketplace. One of the biggest issues around customer experience today is that customer journeys kind of get broken all the time, and they are getting increasingly complex. And I'm sure you've heard the term omni-channel many times. One of those overused terms like digital transformation. But the goal of omni-channel is to be able to take someone on one channel and give them a customer experience, no matter what channel they move to, whether they start on a website, whether they're coming in through on a public Facebook page, whether they're actually talking to someone in the contact center, and take them through a consistent journey that doesn't get broken. The trouble is, at the moment, these journeys get broken all of the time. So one of the key challenges, and I'll kind of put this together in a little while from an AI perspective, is to make these journeys as automated as possible, to keep the persistence, and ultimately, this is the key to actually improving customer experience. And that's a great opportunity for a company like us, because we often go into an enterprise, and whether it's a click and collect journey, whether that's a fraud management journey for a bank, whether that's smart meter appointment bookings for a utility, all of these kind of things is an opportunity to really capture the customer, but also drive efficiency and a high level of customer experience. So how do you kind of bring this stuff in? Obviously, there's a lot of hype around at the moment. We kind of, if you believe everything, you think it's going to be deployed on a massive scale. That's not quite the case, but we are seeing some very interesting movements in the marketplace. So from a customer experience perspective, one of the key areas at the moment is around augmentation. And if you've got a customer service agent, I don't think anybody's proposing or suggesting at the moment, certainly not in the next few years, that we're just going to replace contact center agents, so you won't be able to talk to a human at the end of the day with pure AI-based technology. But what you can do is start to bring levels of automation and AI in at the front end with things like chatbots, which actually free up a contact center agent's time to talk to customers where there's where there's a big issue or a code blue, if you like. So you can start to automate some of the front end interactions, and indeed AI can play a role as well in terms of helping the contact center agent with suggestions. Contact center agents are swivel chairing a lot, using a lot of data, especially when you think about an industry like insurance for claims and policies. Pulling data from the back end is very much a challenge for those types of industries. So you can start somebody potentially on an automated experience like a chatbot. Again, for simple things like resetting a password, meter readings, ID and V. So simple inquiries that would create inbound traffic into a contact center. Now, if you've got a complaint, applying sort of sentiment analysis, typically that's when someone wants an interaction, certainly at the moment with a human interface. But you don't have to take them into an expensive sort of voice channel. You can do that through a messaging channel. So you could do that through SMS chat. You could do it through Facebook Messenger chat. And ultimately, having the actual default where you can control the outbound engagement, where the agent can still talk to a customer. And what we found through this type of model and this type of blend, which we would certainly call truly omni-channel, is that in some cases, we're seeing inbound contact center call rates, which is a big deal as a KPI in those types of environment, going down by about sort of 20–30%, and that's a big deal. And also, in some cases, we've seen with one customer saving about an hour of an agent's time in a contact center every day. That's a big deal from a KPI perspective. So, as we sort of go through automating some of those more mundane outbound support tasks, that's really where the market is at the moment. It's kind of a baby step in terms of the application of AI-based technology, but it's a great way to start to utilize chatbots and then sort of build the sophistication from there. Again, the reduction of inbound by encouraging the customer to do more self-service versus sitting on a sitting there on the phone at the end of the day listening to sort of bad music from an automated call dialer. And again, we certainly see this becoming more and more prevalent. And, we've done literally just a few launches in the last couple of weeks with a couple of retailers. We're working with several parcel courier delivery companies as well. So there's really a nice application that we're seeing coming through and requirement for as companies transform their customer experience strategies. So one of the key things that we do see in the marketplace is there is a challenge within enterprises that have a lot of legacy IT system estates or infrastructure, systems that weren't built to engage. They were built to record and hold data. And then at the front end, you've got all this new digital technology, all the digital messaging channels. And the key requirement is around what I kind of call the digital middle ground, is that how do you kind of automate the processes to support those customer experiences and those journeys, but also as well integrate successfully with those back-end systems. That's where the real IT challenge comes in for any kind of automation, for any way of actually bringing in something like AI or a chatbot into that customer experience process. It's not just a case of standing the thing up and letting it run. It just doesn't work like that in the IT land. So again, with the focus on the actual operational processes that you're trying to control, that's a key piece of the automation puzzle as well. Whether it's resource scheduling, appointment bookings, returns, fraud management, any kind of digital customer interaction, that requires a lot of potential integration from a system perspective. Again, that's an area in our portfolio that we support large enterprises on. So there's several different approaches in the marketplace at the moment, and our approach is very much to help organizations take baby steps of all this kind of stuff. If you look at the evolution of software and especially coding within organizations and IT groups, it's gone from the process of being sort of messy, quite hard to maintain, not particularly scalable, to now having things like DevOps, very sort of modular, small teams, iterating fast, working on different aspects. But the challenge with that is it becomes very, very fragmented. So, our approach is very much helping organizations to have basically a central competence of what they need to actually try to achieve from a customer experience perspective or a customer engagement hub, having one bot-based framework that supports the customer at the front end, that's potentially pulling on different types of chatbots and AI-based technology that actually might exist in different departments. But the key is to bring it all together and provide a coherent customer experience. And that's one of the key things that we build into our portfolio. There's a huge number of different software applications and toolkits available on the marketplace now. A lot of it open source, which is great for feet on the street developers. A lot of bot building platforms, a lot of nicely packaged chatbot applications, and obviously the utilization of messaging platforms and virtual assistants as well. So, that's a lot to navigate for a lot of enterprises that are just getting into this kind of thing and trying to work out how they can deliver commercial value and customer experience value. So again, our framework is about the operational reality of what it actually takes to deliver some of these things and take it into the real world and actually achieve the objective of improving customer experience. And that's really flowed, throughout what we've done as a business from our enterprise portfolio. We see a perfect storm in the marketplace. The whole evolution explosion of messaging channels, elements like AI coming into play, the sheer drive around digital transformation, and the fact that companies have to do something about the way they serve customers, join up the customer experience. We see that in the retail sector, especially with the struggles of the online and the bricks and mortar world. So it's a really interesting time to exist in the marketplace, and that's how we've built our portfolio of applications that can support line of business in terms of customer service, in terms of marketing, but basically we're taking care of the plumbing from the integration into networks, gateways, the kind of communications plumbing that, especially in the mobile world, which a lot of companies, including some software providers, aren't used to, but at the same time having a very clear AI-based layer and toolkit that we can actually take into customer experience programs and projects with enterprises. So with that, at the moment, we're at a point of augmentation versus replacement. I think, from the last presentation, we're probably 10 years away before there's kind of wholesale replacement when it comes to, certainly the customer service angle. But enterprises, especially the more larger complex enterprises, need support in terms of operational best practice. And that's a huge success criteria point for how AI is actually used in the world of customer experience. But the market is already there. It's early adopter phase, but it is going to explode in the next 3 to 5 years in terms of our opinion. That's it. Thanks.
Any questions?
Thank you very much. Simon Jeffries from Collective Clarity. I just had a question around context interpretation as opposed to text analytics or whatever.
Yeah.
But how advanced do you think the market is in terms of interpreting a statement like the Governor of the Bank of England saying something and that being related into how one would trade financial markets or instruments within the financial markets on what was said, as an example? Is it there? Is it there now, or whereabouts are we?
Well, look, in terms of proof of concept and the technology to actually achieve that kind of use case you're talking about, yes, the technology is there. The challenge for any enterprise, whatever sector you're in, is about turning that into something which is applicable to a wider market and delivering value 24/7, day in, day out. Now, if you take your standard enterprise, they're still struggling to communicate with customers in the right context. Is the point I'm trying to make there. So, being able to personalize versus batch and blast, those kind of aspects are a little time away. So back to your original question, the technology is undoubtedly there to be able to achieve that, but how you actually offer that as a commercial package, from an enterprise perspective, is that's the biggest challenge.
Can you go back to the very first slide, the chart you showed, please?
Sure.
That one. Doesn't that look? That looks like a linear growth rate with regards to the business value, but an exponential decay rate with regard to growth. Can you just explain that? I don't.
Yeah, for sure. In terms of a growth market, I think there, in terms of where we are at the moment, you're looking at sort of 70% growth in terms of CAGR. From that perspective, as the market sort of matures and the adoption takes place, that growth will decline. That's basically a typical growth model. There's huge exponential growth in the first 1 to 2 to 3 years in terms of adoption. As that starts to standardize, similar thing with adoption of smartphones. It's been at huge levels as we've reached kind of 80% plus penetration of, say, for example, smartphones in the UK. Obviously, the growth rate goes down and is a lot lower. It doesn't diminish the value of the marketplace, but the growth rate will slow, and that's the opinion of the industry analyst Gartner.
Okay, and secondly, you mentioned that the messaging system RCS is coming in.
Yes.
Can you just explain what's the difference between RCS and something like WhatsApp?
Yeah, so RCS won't actually require a third-party application. So WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, those are actual pieces of application software that you would download as an app on your device. RCS, like SMS, is something as an inbox which will start to become standardized. So it's more of a technology and a way to actually sort of communicate versus an actual messaging app itself. So you wouldn't say SMS is not the same as a messaging app because it's ubiquitous in terms of the way it works. It's kind of installed on the firmware of your phone, if you like. RCS is meant to be that sort of next to ubiquitous open technology. It's not actually new. Rich communication service as a concept and as a technology has been around for a number of years, but it's now starting to be adopted by operators. Google are very much championing it from that perspective. There is an Android penetration agenda there. So the real thing there is about the potential ubiquity of that. Something like Facebook Messenger, that's never going to become a ubiquitous technology because some people like Facebook Messenger, some people use WhatsApp, etc., etc. But RCS, potential ubiquity, definitely there.
Okay, and thirdly, in layman's terms, can you just explain what a chatbot is, please?
Yeah, so a chatbot is, so for example, if you're texting someone like a friend, okay, you can have that same text conversation with a machine and get responses back. So for example, if you're tracking a parcel with a courier company, you could go into, they might have a Facebook Messenger chatbot application. You'd go into that, you'd say, where is my order? Okay, the machine would interpret that, again through natural language processing, come back and say to you, what is your order number? Go off, retrieve information and come back with it. It's just automating the conversation just as you would with, friends and family.
Can I just ask how Facebook are monetizing it, what they're sort of charging? Because obviously it's quite nascent, isn't it, all this?
Yeah, well look, Facebook at the end of the day, their types of monetization models is still around ads at the end of the day. And the use of social messaging applications over an IP channel, it's still pretty much sort of free from a consumer perspective. Now, what you are seeing is when companies are wanting to use application to person messaging and actually bring on the channel themselves, there is a charge and a certification model. So Facebook Messenger for Business, iMessage for Business, WhatsApp are also just starting to open up their system now for businesses. So that then becomes an actual license directly with the business, but the actual IP channel and the traffic remains sort of free, if you like.
Thank you, Matt.
Okay, thanks very much.